Lochoya sambo apagyo trashiapa Tuche tempe tinle yarngoda Pelge drolor zampe zepache Palden lamme shabla solvade Om Guru Vajradhara Suma Timo Nisha Sanekar Uta Vardhani Shri Bhadra Varsa Manya Sarva Siddhi Hum Om Guru Vajradhara Suma Timo Nisha Sanekar Uta Vardhani Shri Bhadra Varsa Manya Sarva Siddhi Hum Om Guru Vajradhara Suma Timo Nishas Uta Vardhani Shri Bhadra Varsa Manya Sarva Siddhi Hum Om Guru Vajradhara Suma Timo Nishas Sanekar Uta Vardhani Shri Bhadra Varsa Manya Sarva Siddhi Hum Om Guru Vajradhara Suma Timo Nisha Sanekar Uta Vardhani Shri Bhadra Varsa Manya Sarva Siddhi Om Guru Vajradhara Suma Timo Nisha Sanekar Uta Vardhani Shri Bhadra Varsa Manya Sarva Siddhi Hum Om Guru Vajradhara Suma Timo Nisha Sanekar Uta Vardhani Shri Bhadra Varsa Manya Sarva Siddhi Hum Om Guru Vajradhara Suma Timo Nisha Sanekar Uta Vardhani Shri Bhadra Varsa Manya Sarva Siddhi Hum Om Guru Vajradhara Suma Timo Nisha Sanekar Uta Vardhani Shri Bhadra Varsa Manya Sarva Siddhi Hum Om Guru Vajradhara Suma Timo Nisha Sanekar Uta Vardhani Shri Bhadra Varsa Manya Sarva Siddhi Hum Om Guru Vajradhara Suma Timo Nisha Sanekar Uta Vardhani Shri Bhadra Varsa Manya Sarva Siddhi Om Guru Vajradhara Suma Timo Nisha Sanekar Uta Vardhani Shri Bhadra Varsa Manya Sarva Siddhi Hum Om Guru Vajradhara Suma Timo Nisha Sanekar Uta Vardhani Shri Bhadra Varsa Manya Sarva Siddhi Hum Om Guru Vajradhara Suma Timo Nisha Sanekar Uta Vardhani Shri Bhadra Varsa Manya Sarva Siddhi Hum Om Guru Vajradhara Suma Timo Nisha Uta Vardhani Shri Bhadra Varsa Manya Sarva Siddhi Hum Om Guru Vajradhara Suma Timo Nisha Sanekar Uta Vardhani Shri Bhadra Varsa Manya Sarva Siddhi Hum Om Guru Vajradhara Suma Timo Nisha Sanekar Uta Vardhani Shri Bhadra Varsa Manya Sarva Siddhi Hum Om Guru Vajradhara Suma Timo Nisha Sanekar Uta Vardhani Shri Bhadra Varsa Manya Sarva Siddhi Hum Om Guru Vajradhara Suma Timo Nisha Sanekar Uta Vardhani Shri Bhadra Manya Sarva Siddhi Hum Dagi jitsun lama tuje che nyamda dala tuje sikso so gebe shesan dala tendo so uyon sunge nawa tsedo so tseji nyingne sowa debe tse dechen korlo visu lekshu ne yila sambe dede malupa geme lunge drupra jinge lo tsoni sodan dikdun shape tse dunge namke yin su lekshu ne lapchen tsoni yon su zopa dang Chera nidun chamra jinge lo chancho parge ninsen tukun tu Niu peme siudro lekshu ne chancho drube gegen kunshi shi Tungen de la drubra jinge lo dage lo na chola chokpa dang Chemi samjur ngemba shiwa dang Chedan tumbe dede malu pa beme lunge drubra Dorna tingne tera tamche dang Techi pardu nekab tamche tu rese kyamne lama kele me tukje chingi dala sikso so gongyab drewe nyamda dachala chetsun lame tuje rab gongne kudan sungi nawa dral me tu nyamsu nyongwe kesan tobrasho kewa kuntu yanda lama dan drame cheki pe la longche chin sadan lamgi yönden rab zone dorje changi koba nyur tobe sho Pakyuke akudan dagi aloya pakyuke sundan dagi ngam pakyuke tukdan dagi yi tenyerme chikto chingi alo Makyuke kudan dagi aloya Makyuke sundan dagi nga Makyuke tukdan dagi yi Tenyerme chikto chingi alo Om Muni Muni Maha Muni Shakya Muni Swaha Sayashi Peki Chukshi Medo Tran Rirab Lingshi Nide Gembadi Sange Shindula Mikde Ulvaraki Drogun Namda Shingla Chepara Shoye Daman Guru Ratna Mandral Kam Niryata Yami Sange Chedan Tsoge Chanamla Chancho Pardo Dani Kyapso Chin Dagi jinso gibe sonam ki drola pinchira sange druparashu sange chedan sogi chonamla chancho pardo dani kyaps dagi chushe gibe sonam ki drola pinchira sange druparashu Sange chedan sogi choknamla chancho pardo dani kyapsuchi dagi chushe gibe sonam ki drola pinchire sange druparasho Nel Buddha, nel Dharma e nel Sangha prendo rifugio fino all'illuminazione. Con la pratica della generosità e delle altre perfezioni, possa io ottenere lo stato di Buddha per il beneficio di tutti gli esseri senzienti. In the Buddha, Dharma and Sangha, I take refuge until enlightenment. Through the practice of generosity and the other perfections, may I attain Buddhahood for the benefit of all sentient beings. Haye ke da ludane chinke drupon danda miye ke na drwa kwenge ranam che tsampa tamche ke du dage che ten ton.
Good morning. Lama Tsongkhapa. Lama Tsongkhapa, in one of the important texts that he wrote, called Amrin Saldrin, the lamp that clarifies the 5 stages of the path of Guhya Samadra, is one of the most important texts that Lama Tsongkhapa wrote. It began with the verse that he cited. And my teacher always used this at the beginning of teachings. It says, be aware of how lucky you are to be here. Just know how lucky you are to have entered here. And reflecting well on this good luck, shine with joy, with a bright smile, and listen with attention, abandoning the defects of the 3 polluted containers. In our life, and generally speaking, if we observe, a lot of time is used just to survive. We spend a big part of our life just obtaining resources that are necessary for our life, for our lifestyle, and then managing those resources. From when we're children, we begin studying. We study to then get a job, and then you work to get resources, and then you use up those resources. You save those resources. You protect them, and of course there's also there's other, but most of our life just turns around this kind of survival, where we try to avoid suffering and we try to experience pleasures wherever possible. And in managing these resources, and very often life just turns around. How can I say? Just turning around this. There are few people, unfortunately, and I don't mean to say Buddhist or not Buddhist, but there are few people who have the opportunity in their lifetime to ask themselves questions and actually find answers. Already asking oneself a question is really important, because if you don't ask the question, even if the answers are right there in front of you, you'll never find them. So, a question, what do I want? Why do I suffer? What does it really mean to be happy? And what can I do for that? These are questions that are absolutely fundamental. But very often we live in a kind of automated state where we believe that what generates suffering is, is what parents and grandparents has shown, and nothing against parents, but just to say that what society has shown us. I mean, we follow these dreams that have been transmitted. And just open and close parentheses. I think it would be really important to transmit deeper values through stories for children. Because when we're small and we go when they tell us tales and stories, fairy tales, they transmit values. They transmit paradigms. They lived happily ever after. Nothing against weddings and marriage, but I don't believe that within the relationship of a couple, it's neither the solution nor the source of suffering. In Brazil, for example, when a child hurts himself and goes to the parent crying, one of the answers given by the parents is, when the child is crying, when you get married, it'll all be better. It'll pass. It'll be pass. So these stories that are told, talk about finding the prince and live happily ever after. We don't have stories that say, win over your selfishness and you live forever happy, live happily forever, or overcome your instability, or generate great love for everyone. No, instead, the stories for children have to do with creating a world around them, create a family in a certain way, material resources in a certain way, etc. And then that will bring happiness. I mean, I have nothing against wealth and nothing against the family, of course not. But it's not enough, and it's not the answer. But we grow up within this paradigm. I mean, there are things that we just never ask ourselves. So asking the question, where does my suffering come from? What can I do to reach a real state of peace? Is it possible? Is it not possible? And reach an answer that makes sense to us. It's important. And better yet, if we have an answer that is logical, is coherent, and is, and let's say an answer that that doesn't come only to us, but that has also been the answer to those who've come before us, who are wiser than us. So when we're in front of when we have these tools that can help us to actually help us realize these aspects, it's not immediate, but what helps us generate our qualities to be a better benefit for others, and defeat our defects. This is marvelous, and this it's not about being Buddhist or not. It's not like, okay, think how lucky you are because you're here in Albagnano. No, it's not about that. We are lucky because we ask ourselves questions that the majority of people have never asked themselves. And let me repeat this again. It has nothing to do with being Buddhist or not. I mean, one can ask himself this question in so many religious, social contexts. I mean, it's important to find answers that are coherent and really believe in one's own potential and have tools that we can trust, that practical tools. Because when the reality in front of us, for example, we say, okay, suffering comes from karma and mental defilements, but then if I can't do anything about it, then it becomes very frustrating. But instead, when I'm shown that there are valid tools to be able to face all of this, and that all of us, without exception, can do it. There are teachings that say, even an ant, if it has enthusiastic effort, even an ant with the right enthusiastic effort can reach enlightenment. So I don't know why in teachings when they mean to say like an inferior being, they always use the example of an ant when ants are so nice. But let's say, I don't know what goes on in the head of an ant, but we're saying, let's say anybody, even someone less developed, if anybody puts in the right effort and starts walking, each one with his own rhythm, then it's possible, and we can come into contact with the view, the direction, the guidelines, and the guidelines of conduct, and that are going to help us along this path. This is very, very fortunate. And sometimes I ask, why us? Why me? If we look around us, you don't have to go very far. Among the people that we know, family, friends, work, the people around us, how many really ask themselves this question and look for an answer and look and try to do something to try to understand that they're not a victim of the world, that they try to overcome their mental defilements. How often does this happen? Unfortunately, not very often, and it doesn't mean that we're better than anyone else. Absolutely not. But it means that we have a very special opportunity. And we need to use this opportunity in the best way we can, and we need to rejoice. I don't know, based on what causes and conditions have brought me here, but if we think about this, we're here in Italy in 2020, and we have a direct access to an uninterrupted lineage, and to extremely valid techniques, that will bring us to a state of inner peace. This lineage that came through Tibet has come to us. It's absurd almost. But here we are. And we have this good fortune. So it's really important for us to reflect on the preciousness of what we have, because when we reflect on the preciousness of what we have, then we learn to give value to it, because value is given to things based on the worth of something is based on the value given to it. So of any object, what's the worth of this object? If I need to take care of it in this way or that way, its worth depends on the value that we give it. And it's really clear that when we live moments of our life, we have a tendency to live those moments as if that they'll repeat, they'll go on forever, and it's just like that. But it's not like that. Every opportunity that we have, every moment that we have is unique. One of the clear examples that we have of this, I remember Wednesdays for Milan, for example. Okay, we're going to have the empowerment. I remember saying we're going to have the empowerment with Lama Ganshin. Remember This is a unique opportunity. We don't know how much longer we're going to have this opportunity, and actually, and we lived those moments that were unique. They so that when we have something, we think, oh, okay, after I'll be able to. But no, they are unique moments, like this moment here, and it's very important to give the right value, because none of us has the awareness and the certainty of what's going to happen and how much time we're going to have this opportunity, because today we have this opportunity to learn and to reflect. To practice Dharma, they say that we need three fundamental conditions. You can find this explanation in the practice of Lochong, the mind training. The first condition is to have the minimum necessary, because we can sit here reflecting calmly on the meaning of Dharma because someone is cooking for us. We don't need to worry about eating. Our basic physical necessities are covered. Because if we lived in fear of not being able to pay our bills or have food, then we wouldn't have the inner space to be able to we wouldn't have the inner space to sit down and reflect calmly on the Dharma. So the first condition is to have the minimum necessary. The second condition is to have someone who can guide us correctly. And the third condition is to have the will, have the desire to walk, to find pleasure and joy in the practice. We have these conditions, and they're not easy to find. There are those who have material wealth, but they don't even know where to start. Or maybe there's someone who wants to practice, has someone to even guide him, but needs to work day and night just to survive. Or maybe someone has just an excellent guide in front of him, but the person doesn't want to practice and just continues to victimize himself and continues to wait for someone to do for him. So having these conditions is not something that we can take for granted. So having this path, being able to come into contact with these teachings that we're going to see now, the practice of self-healing, is not something obvious. But simply being able to reflect on this path, on the nature of our lives, on the nature of our suffering and happiness, and how we can reach a state of path and have the tools to get there through an uninterrupted lineage, is something that goes beyond what most of us could even understand. The preciousness goes beyond what we can even understand. If we look at in the stories of the past, there were people who would spend years traveling and waiting for certain teachings. When I was in Tibet once, I was there in the monastery of Tashi Lumpo in my room in this small hotel of the monastery, and the abbot came with an older monastery of this monastery near Lhasa, Nimoggyalchen, and they asked me to give them teachings. I said, "Excuse me." I mean, it was the abbot was in front of me. I said, you don't need teachings from me. You have the knowledge of Dharma that's absolutely wonderful. And what can I teach you? You have such great knowledge on so many levels. And they said, our point is not the knowledge, but you have a pure lineage. and we want to connect with your pure lineage. And this is something that maybe escapes us. They were saying instead, Lama Michel Rinpoche has a pure lineage. So what determines whether a lineage is pure or not? It has nothing to do with the lineage is good or not good. The metaphor given is the metaphor used is like as let's imagine, for example, that we're doing an electrical we're putting down an electrical implant in our house, and we need to connect our electricity to the central electrical plant. If there's a broken wire between us and the electrical plant, then the light is not going to come. So for there to be a connection, we need to have a pure relationship of love and trust. This is a very important point. Once if one loses love or one loses the trust, then that connection is a connection is lost, and then the lineage is no longer pure. So what the frequency is for it to be pure is this connection from heart to heart, and along our path, it's something. It's like the most precious thing that we have, and we need to take care of it always. It's not just about theoretical knowledge, but where this connection is the most precious thing that we have, because we receive much more through this connection than through the theoretical connections with the theoretical knowledge, which is also important. But Lama Ganchen always had an extremely pure lineage, a pure connection with his masters, and they too had pure relationships. And on my side, I've always had a very, very pure connection with the Guru. And if I can rejoice for something, it's this. And when they asked me to give the transmission of the three principal aspects of the path, why? Not because they didn't know that text or because they needed any kind of explanation, but they wanted the connection with this lineage. And we have this. We have this good luck, this fortune. As Lama Tsongkhapa said, be aware, know how lucky you are. How lucky you are to have entered here. Think really well. Song in Tibetan, Kutsi is the imperative form, and here Lama Tsongkhapa is saying, think well, think about this good luck that you have, and shine with joy. Gawai Shinkidang. Dang means light. Means like shine. Gawa means to joy. Just reflect on this opportunity and shine with joy. And in this state, Rabsel, Rab means strong. Tsum means smile, with a strong, great smile. Nyam is Nyam da Tempai, and is So with a great luminous smile, so with a great luminous smile, listen, Nyun, abandoning distractions of the three the defective containers. Give value to what you're living now and bring your full attention here. Abandon distractions, the thoughts that have to do with the past, the projections of the future, and bring all of your attention in this moment, because what we have is something precious and unique. Abandon the three defective containers. It means that when we listen to Dharma, we need to be careful to abandon these three metaphors, these three defective containers. The first one is the pot is upside down. Imagine that the teachings of Dharma are like a pure nectar that are poured into a pot. So if no matter how pure the teachings are, if the pot is upside down, it's not to get anything. So if you're sleeping or if you're mentally not present, I can be physically somewhere, but mentally somewhere else. When that happens, we receive the teachings, but we're not receiving even one. It's like a pot that is, is receiving the water, but it's not getting anything because it's upside down. The second metaphor is where we're in the right position, but within the pot there is some kind of poison or dirt. What's that? That's when we go to listen to teachings and we're taken by negative emotions like envy and jealousy or anger or other kind of emotions like that. And when we have those kinds of emotions, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what we listen to. We're listening through this polluted filter. So it doesn't matter how pure the water is that gets into that vessel. It's going to be tainted. If we listen to teachings taken by feelings of arrogance or anger, we're going to pollute the teachings because we're listening through that filter. And the third one, which is it should still be avoided, but not as dangerous. Let's say that the pot is clean, but it's full of holes. This is the third type of defective vessel. So we're receiving. We're like, oh, wonderful, wonderful. But as it comes in, it just goes right out. I'm sure that all of us have a couple holes here and there. It's difficult to retain 100% of what we receive. So that's why it's important to repeat and bring our attention, our full attention, because we'll never be able to remember what we didn't understand. So it's important to bring our attention to the present. Remember, this is a unique moment, and we should live it to the best of our abilities. Afterwards, when we by putting into practice what we received, we won't lose it. If we don't use it, little by little, it gets lost. That's normal. So let's rejoice with this opportunity that we have. Any practice that we go to do, it's very important. The way that we begin is very important, and so that's why the preliminaries are very important. So it's really important to remember something. So for the practice of self-healing, for example, it's like it's a map. It's a trip we're going to take, and this trip, we can say this path has two principal phases. One where we prepare ourselves, and then another where we actually go. We prepare ourselves. Now, how do we prepare ourselves? It's as if we wanted to go on a trip, and we want to go from here. I always use the example of Kailash because I really would like to go to Kailash. So from here we want to go to Mount Kailash, the sacred mountain, which is on the border of India and Tibet. So we prepare ourselves to go to Kailash by talking to someone who's already been, taking maps, looking at all the steps, to get there. We haven't started our trip yet. I mean, we're still on confinement. We don't have the conditions to go, and maybe someone's not even ready for the trip. But we begin. We get the maps. We imagine the various passages. Maybe you put in the map and the navigator, and you imagine every passage of go here, I'm going to sleep here, and then I need to go from this place to this one, etc., etc. And one imagines the whole journey, imagining getting there. And so this imagining every passage, imagining every step of the trip, of the journey, this process is very important. Because it's that once we find ourselves on the journey, maybe we won't have the map in our hands. But we already know the steps to take. Here we know we need to turn here, we need to go there, and we have a certain familiarity with it. It's like there's some kind of sports, like track, for example, where the athlete needs to visualize the exercise before doing it. So if someone needs to do a long jump, for example, one imagines it before actually doing it. So when we practice a sadhana, there are two parts to it. Where we imagine every passage, and then the next step, and we can't say when it happens, but it happens when it's no longer an imagination, but when it actually happens. So we imagine some inner processes, inner journeys, and then at a certain point that experience really happens. So at the beginning, we say, I'll do this, then I'll do that, and it'll be like this, it'll be like that. And in Shargom in Tibetan, Shar means to come, to arise, and Gom is to familiarize. So it's the meditation through the various passages, meditation, the steps, and little by little we familiarize ourselves with these steps. So we don't have this hurry to realize. Let's begin by creating familiarity, understanding what the steps are. And in the meantime, we put emphasis we put emphasis on where we are, but we imagine the rest. So I imagine I leave my house, and from my house I get to the corner. But I already I have in my my head all the other steps that I'll need to do after. In the sadhana, we begin where we are. So this is our first step, and then we'll imagine all the various steps. And in Tantra, this difference exists also. It's a one. It's one. It's so the we have Kerim and Tsorim in Tibetan. It's the generation stage and completion stage in the practice. So the difference being the generation stage is where one imagines, and so imagines that he reaches certain states of consciousness, and the realization stage is no longer an imagination, but it's a direct experience. These are the two steps that we're gradually going to do. But let's start with these first steps. I wanted to give this explanation to explain that in the practice, it's not that one just does where the step of where he is. I mean, the main emphasis is where one is, but one does the whole practice, even if one hasn't yet realized those states of consciousness, because that way one familiarizes himself with those states of consciousness, and each time one does the practice, it's like adding water to seeds. And this reminds me of Khen Lakpala, one of my teachers, Geshe Tenzin Wantrip. His name, actually, Geshe Tenzin Wantrip was his name, but he was known as Khen Lakpala. And he told me that he did a sadhana every day, and it was the practice of Yamantaka. And this sadhana that he did every day, he had started it when he was about 17 years old, when he received the transmission, the commentary, explanation of the practice. He took the commitment to do it every day. And he said that he started when he was 17, and he said he never skipped a day in his entire life, not even when he was leaving Tibet and going over the mountains from Tibet into India. We said one day that he said that one night he was so exhausted that they just fell to the ground, and they woke up in the morning and saw that they were almost sleeping in water. But in spite of moments like that, he never skipped a day. But he said that he began to understand what he was doing when he was about 50 years old. So more than 30 years later, having done it every day, he started to understand more deeply. And he was a marvelous person, and he showed so many signs of a realized being. Anyway, the practice should be done with constancy. And at the beginning, maybe one doesn't really understand everything, but every time it's done, it's a little bit of water onto that, a little bit of water on the seed, and little by little it starts making sense. But in the meantime, we put emphasis on where we are, and the most of us are at the beginning. So the practice is divided into 3 parts. There's the part of preparation, or the preliminary practices. There's the actual practice, and then we have the part that's called the conclusion. I wanted to want to look. I'll have to look later at this text, the wholesome questions and noble-minded answers. But it's very important to prepare well for two reasons. One, because to do something, we need to have the right ingredients. If we wanted to cook a certain dish, there's the part where we need to know how to add the ingredients correctly and know our cooking time. The cooking time would be the actual prep after cooking time, but how can I mix the ingredients and cook it, and how can I cook well if I don't have the ingredients? I mean, where do I begin this process of cooking? In getting the ingredients and in preparing also the kitchen, cleaning the kitchen. Because if I want to make an important dish for someone, it needs to be clean, no? I need to work well, so I need to prepare, I need to get the ingredients. I go here and there, I find all the necessary ingredients. And once I have these ingredients, I can begin cooking. And concluding would be eating or serving. But I have the preparation. I prepare the ingredients. And the actual practice, which would be cooking. And then the conclusion is serving. And each part is important. It's like, for example, spaghetti with tomato sauce. I mean, the ingredients are fundamental. If you have rotten tomatoes, or if you have a bad oil or bad pasta, even the water, I mean, how important is water? Even the water is important. All ingredients, each one is important to make that dish. But the preparation is important too. And so when we go to do the practice of self-healing, what are the main ingredients? Our body and mind. And we need to prepare them. We need to create the right conditions, the right ingredients to do that magic of transforming our mind to generate those states of virtuous consciousness. And this magic is done step by step. What's important is that we need to also prepare the place where we're going to do our practice, also because our environment influences our state of being. There's a difference, where I go to sit. If I'm an expert meditator, you go anywhere, it doesn't matter. But for those who are beginning, or maybe those who've begun for a while, we're influenced by our environment, our surroundings. It's like when we go to do something important, we prepare the place, and when we go to sit to meditate, it's something really important. We're creating the causes. We're walking towards our inner development to help other beings. It's something very important, and so we need to prepare well. So the first thing that should be done is to clean the place where we're going to meditate. Cleaning it doesn't mean that it's just that the place needs to be physically clean, but it's an action an action of respect. Respect by us practitioners, where we give value to what we're going to do. And as we're cleaning our meditation place, we need to be aware that act of cleaning, which can be done with a broom or a vacuum cleaner or whatever, like the Dalai Lama, for example, in Tibet, even if he was the king of Tibet and had the most power and respect among everyone. He had hundreds of attendants, etc. In his meditation place, he had his broom that he used to clean his own meditation place, because that's part of the path. And this began at the time of Buddha. At the time of Buddha, there was a family, and this family was a family of Brahmins. And they had a problem that every time a child was born, after a few months, he would, in a few days, few months, he would die. He couldn't survive after birth. And a wise man arrived and said, the next child who arrives, the mother was already pregnant, they said, you should take this child and give him to a young girl. And this young girl will bring the newborn, bring the newborn to a crossroad on the street and ask everyone who goes by to bless the baby. They did this, and this girl was very diligent and hardworking, and so she brought the baby to this intersection, this crossroad, and everyone who passed gave his blessing. May this baby, live long, etc. And they gave the name Lamche, which means big road. And the baby grew healthy and strong. And then the second child arrived, and they do the same thing, but they give the baby to a young girl to a crossroads to be blessed. But this time this girl was a little bit lazy, so instead of going to a big road that was a little bit far, but she went to a closer crossroads where very few people passed. Maybe maybe one person, two people that actually blessed the child, and so the other child was given the name of Small Road. Big Road grew up to be very intelligent and had lots of knowledge, and Little Road wasn't very bright and had a lot of trouble understanding things. But they were both disciples of Buddha, because so Big Road is a very bright, important disciple, and his brother, who also became a monk, Big Road was trying to teach Small Road how to memorize and to give, memorize prayers, etc., like the refuge prayer, Namo Guru Bye, for example. But he would say Namo Guru Bye and Namo Buddhaya. But then Little Road, he would learn the first line, and then before going on to the second verse, he had already forgotten the first line. He couldn't memorize anything. He couldn't keep anything in his head. So he was trying, as he'd walk around with all the farmers, he's trying to recite out loud all the verses. So like all the farmers are learning the verses, but he couldn't memorize anything. So, he'd teach him one line, go on to the second, he'd forget the first, etc. And one day, his brother, the Big Road, just really reprimanded him. He said, it's not possible. How is this that you can't memorize anything? And Small Road just was devastated, and he wanted to leave the monastery. He said, my brother, who's so kind to me, who has tried so hard to teach me, but it's just impossible. My life is useless, and I can't learn anything. I'm just a disgrace. I'm a disgrace for the monastery. I'm a shame. And as he was leaving, he encountered Buddha, and the Buddha said, my son, where are you going? What happened? And he told him the story, and Buddha said, don't worry, I have something for you. And he brought him to a gompa, where everyone united to do prayers. He says, here, all you need to do is clean. You don't need to do anything else. And he was so happy that he could do something where, he was able to do it. He felt useful. And Buddha himself had given him this job. And so he was there cleaning every day, day after day. And it said that as he cleaned, it said that he would clean one corner, and then he'd go to the next corner, and when he'd finish one corner, the second corner, he'd go back to the other, which was already dirty, and he would just go and keep cleaning. He did it with faith and respect and enthusiasm. His master had given him this job, and he was happy to do it. And one day, gradually, his mind started becoming clearer. And then one day, he understood, not so conceptually, but on a deeper level, he understood, Buddha didn't tell me to clean the dirt. It's not the dirt of the dust. And it's this is what needs to be cleaned is attachment, and should be cleaned with satisfaction. It's the dirt of anger that should be cleaned with love. And as he was cleaning, he realized that he was experiencing an inner transformation. And it said that like this, he was able to overcome his mental defilements and actually reach the state of arhat, of eliminating his ignorance. And he became a great reference point for even realized practitioners. His mind became very clear, and he was able to give lots of teachings and share the Dharma and have realizations. And from this time, the act of cleaning before meditation became an actual practice. So we prepare ourselves for what we're going to do, and then we remember, as we're cleaning, we're eliminating, not just we're eliminating our selfishness and our arrogance and all our mental defilements, so that we can sit down to do our practice with a pure mind. This is a very, very powerful practice if it's done with the correct awareness and motivation. Even if we're cleaning at our house, we should do it with this awareness. It really adds a lot. So the first of the six dharmas of preparation has to do with cleaning one's own place of meditation. So we begin actually by physically cleaning. Once we've prepared the place, this place, and it needs to be a place that's dedicated for the practice. This depends on the house in which you live. There are those who have the opportunity to have a room, and have a room that's dedicated exclusively to the practice, or some don't. I remember there was a disciple in Brazil who used to compete. He used to compete in horse riding, and once he once he started practicing Dharma, once he built his house, he created a room just for his trophies. But then when he started practicing Dharma, he realized that that was just ridiculous, and he transformed it into a meditation room. And it was nice because it was in the center of the room. But, it just depends on each one of us. If we have this possibility of dedicating a space in our house to the practice, it is important, because to be able to practice well, we need to create space for the practice. This is something that's from the beginning, because our life is so full of things. We need to clean the house. We need to work. We need to eat. We need to have to rest and have fun. There's so many things to do. If we leave our spiritual practice, if for something that we do when we feel like it, then sometimes we'll do it and sometimes we won't. Instead, we need to create space for it. Space means the lack of obstruction. So imagine our suitcase. Our suitcase is our 24 hours a day. What do we put inside this suitcase? If I put lots of shirts, I'm not going to have room for my pants. I need to choose what I'm going to put in the suitcase. I can't bring everything. So for me, it's important to put lots of socks. Then I need to leave the room for socks. Otherwise, it just won't be the room. So otherwise, the day I need to leave, there just won't be room for what I want to put in there. So we need to create a physical space, but we also need to create temporal space. Temporal space means that in our day, we need to determine a space in our calendar, in our agenda, or that we dedicate a time. Because if we don't dedicate a time, it means that we'll meditate when we feel like it, when things are fine, when we manage, or we have great enthusiasm. So when we're very enthusiastic, it comes often, but then when we lose that enthusiasm, maybe we skip a day, and if we skip a day, we skip for 3 months. So it's really important to have this space and time dedicated to the practice. It's space dedicated to meditation. Traditionally, it's said that the best time to do the practice is the morning. One reason is that when we sleep, something wonderful that happens during our sleep is that we digest all the experience. We digest the experiences of the previous day, and so we wake up actually with a clearer mind and more space. I think we've all had this experience. I mean, maybe one goes to sleep with the emotions of the day, lots of thoughts, but in the morning one feels lighter. It's like a kind of reset. There's maybe some things stay, but others, one feels lighter. So at the beginning of the day, we have more space. We have fewer distractions, and as the day goes on, the objects of distraction increase. If I do my practice at lunchtime between meetings, it will be much harder to concentrate on our practice. We'll have many more distractions. I mean, this depends on each one of us. So there are those who feel like they have more space at the end of the day. Ken Lakpala, for example, he worked so much. He was the administrator of the monastery for at least for 15 years, and he was a teacher. He was responsible for the temple construction. He was able to go to work he'd go to work from 7 to 5, and he'd go to sleep at like 9 or 10 o'clock at night. He'd wake up at 3 o'clock in the morning, do all of his practices from 3 to 6. Then he would have breakfast at 6, and at 7 o'clock he would go to work. So this is what he did. I haven't been able to do that, but each one of us needs to manage to find a time, create a physical space. And this physical space is also a time, a specific time. Because if we don't dedicate this time, that time gets taken up by other things. And often we'll have that desire to do it, but we don't know how or where to do it. And like our suitcase that's already full. So look at your lifestyle, look at the things that you have to do, and try to create a temporal space dedicated to the practice. This is part of the preparation. Ideally at the beginning of the day. Start with 15 minutes, 30 minutes, an hour. I mean, the time that you can. And try to dedicate that amount of time. This is something very important. In addition to this, the time that is created, there's also physical space, because if I don't know where to go to do my practice, that will make me uncomfortable and it will be harder. Instead, there should be a place that's specifically dedicated for the practice. And that place, it becomes sacred, and we know that every time we sit there, it's solely for the spiritual practice, nothing else. And if we have a room, then that room is dedicated for spiritual practice. And when we build houses, or we plan a house, and I see that the place for spiritual practice is never considered. I remember going to one of the most beautiful houses I've ever seen by the sea, and it was about 3,500 square meters. It was just enormous. It was beautiful. It had 2 pools, and there was the den and the gym and the lunchroom and the dining room. I mean, the bathroom that I was using was like 100 square meters. It was just enormous. You could get lost just in the bathroom. Had a theater. But in that entire house, there wasn't even a corner dedicated to spiritual practice. And that really made me think, because I was there and I needed to find a place to do the practice. There just wasn't. There was space for everything else. So when we create spaces, I mean, why do we create a bedroom and a dining room? Because those are activities that are important. And so we need to create a space, the appropriate space for it. So if we're able in our house to create a space dedicated to spiritual practice, that will really help us to do it well. If we don't have that physical space, then we should at least have a little corner where there's a cushion and an altar. The altar is the support. It's called the support for the visualization. So the altar is the material objects that is going to be the bridge. It's going to help us connect with our visualization. Something physical that's going to help us connect with our path. So the least you can do is to have a cushion or like a square piece of cloth. That's a minimum. This is what we use to sit down. We sit down, a cushion and with a square cloth on top, or one or the other. The minimum, we have that. We sit and we use that because maybe we share space with others, and we need to respect also the necessities of those we live with. And so in some cases, we can just have this cushion or this cloth that we take out and we put down, and when we sit on it, then that becomes our sacred place. So we prepare the place by cleaning, and then we have the altar. And on the altar is a representation of the body, speech, and mind of the holy. The body is either a statue, an image, or painting. So it represents that which is sacred, and he who guides us on the path. Maybe the image of our spiritual guide, of Buddha Shakyamuni or Yidam. So images of Tara or of Lokteshvara. There's so many images that one can have. The images of lineage masters like Lama Tsongkhapa. And then we also have a text representing the Dharma, and then we have an object to represent the mind. Could be either a stupa or a dorje and a bell, a vajra and bell. The vajra is method, the mind of love and compassion, and the bell is the mind of wisdom, correct view of reality. And the union is the non-state of the non-dual union of bliss and emptiness, the state of enlightenment. So, so here we have body, speech, and mind, because we are also made of body, speech, and mind. And what we want in our practice is to transform our body, speech, and mind by developing our qualities to their maximum potential. So our altar is a representation of our qualities developed to their maximum potential. So our altar is not only a place where we ask for blessings, but it's like a mirror. It's a representation. It's like, for example, if I'm studying medicine and I have an image in front of me, the image of a doctor. So this is the representation of what I want to become, or I put a photo of myself as a doctor. So the altar represents who guides us. It's our refuge, and represents also our own qualities. Because when we put an image of Buddha represents both he who guides us along the path, but represents also our own qualities that are developed to their maximum potential. So this image shows also our capabilities, our own potential. So our altar is a bridge to connect with our own nature, with our potential, and to connect us with our own spiritual path. Normally on the altar, what should be put is representations of body, speech, and mind. We put a sacred text, which could be a book of self-healing, for example. Could be the Lamrim text of liberation in the palm of your hand. Or what I've done often, maybe you take actual piece of furniture, a cabinet. So on one level, so in front where you're seated should have the statues and the images, and they should arrive to more or less to the horizon of our view. So let's say like the base of the statues should be in line with our view, and above there should be all the texts. So we should have you should, in the house, you should keep, the Harry Potter book separate from your Lam Rim book, in the sense, you know, I mean, I know maybe someone can use Harry Potter, for the spiritual path, but they do have, I mean, all all phenomena are void of intrinsic existence. But what represents our spiritual path, what represents the Dharma, should be treated with respect. So Dharma books should not be put on the floor. Should also be treated with respect. They should be kept clean. When I take it to read it, first I touch my head with it for respect. It's not a book that we read in the bathroom. We don't read it. We don't read it just lying down on the couch. So we should be reflecting on the path towards enlightenment. It's something very important, so it should be treated with respect. On the altar, above the altar, we put our books, the texts. Why are Dharma texts and sadhanas should be above the images is because the Guru and the Buddha are those who concede, who they give us refuge, but the actual refuge is the Dharma. So the books and the texts, this is the Dharma. They're all important, Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha, but we give the most respect to the actual refuge of the Dharma. And in front of the altar, we prepare the offerings. The offerings are important. And here is kind of a delicate point, because very often the offerings are understood as something like I offer something to Buddha to make him happy. Offerings are understood as a kind of exchange. I give you this because I want to obtain that. And when I need some kind of blessing a little bit more important, then I'm more generous with my offerings. But offerings are not something that are done for the Guru or for the Buddha or for Tara. The offerings is making offerings is a way to materialize my gratitude, my respect, my faith. And what happens is that we're made of matter, and to materialize these feelings is a very powerful way to cultivate them. So I say that when you offer something, what you should offer is not too much and not too little. So the best that we can offer, the offering is not, like offering gold is not necessarily better than offering sand. I mean, it depends on the value that we give it. What it can't be, let it not be too much or too little. So, offering too much, would be, generating feelings of attachment or some kind of, putting us in a state of difficulty. But remember that when we're offering something, this act of offering, we're connecting with the sacred, with the Guru and the Dharma and Sangha, and we're cultivating respect and gratitude, humility, faith, and it's a very important act. And there's also the aspect of that in our spiritual path, it's very important to accumulate merits. The accumulation of merits it's not like racking up points, but there are no results without having created the causes. And if you want to have a certain type of result, you need to create the causes. This kind of inertia that's generated, normally virtuous causes, the causes that allow us to be well, are obtained through generosity and through acts of sharing and giving. And when we talk about giving, we can give to two different types of groups, to two groups. If we offer to someone who has a spiritual development that is the same or superior to us, actually, no, when we offer to someone who has a superior spiritual development to us, or we can offer to someone who has the same spiritual development or lesser spiritual development. If the group has higher spiritual development, more love, more wisdom, this is called an act of offering instead. If the person has the same level of spiritual development or lesser, then it's an act of generosity. In both cases, we're generating positive energy, and this will help us sustain our practice, this positive energy. If we see the various practitioners, the great masters over the centuries, they have always given a great importance to making offerings. But I repeat that when we go to make offerings, it's not that we're there with our altar and all the images of our guru and the Buddhas, and we say, okay, now the Buddhas are happy that I've made an offering. No. Instead it's where I allow myself to manifest materially my gratitude, my respect, my faith. And so I'm giving a form to a feeling, and this has a strength to it. I've had various experience where you materialize something that reinforces in a very particular way the feelings that are behind it. So both for when making offerings or acting in a respectful way. Okay, it's not that if I don't treat the text well, I'm not going to receive the blessings, or the Buddha says, okay, the Buddha doesn't even respect the text. Why should I give blessings to him? No, it's not about that. It means that when I treat something with respect and I materialize that respect, I'm cultivating gratitude within myself. I'm the gratitude for I'm giving value and greater worth to that. If I treat a text that represents the path if I treat it with indifference, then that will have that will weaken these feelings of respect and gratitude. So this is something for us. So in the preparation, the 6 dharmas of preparation, we clean the space. We have our altar. It's said that the altar should be facing east. Okay, so it can be interpreted as like the cardinal direction of east. But even in the Tibetan language, when we say east, there are 2 types of east. There's the east of the planet, and then there's the east of the physical person. East means in front. I remember in Tashilhunpa, for example, it happened to me more than once in the beginning. I couldn't understand. I need to go to that temple. Where can you give me directions? We say go, go forward, go ahead, turn right, turn left. They say go ahead, go ahead, and then turn west, and then you turn south. And I'm trying to imagine, okay, where does the sun rise? And but no, if east is in front of me, south sorry, east is in front, west is behind, north is to the left, and south is to the right. I don't know if it's just in certain monasteries, but I've seen it used quite commonly. So here we say that the altar is found to the east. It means that the altar is in front of us, not to our side and not behind us. So this is an important aspect. If I say, okay, well, we can say, how can I place the altar, facing east is difficult. No, it just needs to be facing us. The altar is in front of us. And then if you just to be sure want to put it also facing, if you want it to the east, then go ahead and do that. Go ahead and do that too. That's even better. In the eastern direction. So once we've cleaned and we've created the space, the time and the place, physical space, temporal space, I invite you also to take away distractions as much as possible. So the cell phone should be turned off, not even in airplane mode. Turn it off. We used to say, we used to say, take the phone off the hook. I don't know how many of you actually have a landline, but the point is really turn off the things that will distract us, and for that period. So we've prepared the place. Once we've prepared the place, we prepare the altar. The altar is personal. It's a personal connection. In the Hindu tradition, there's some Hindu traditions. In some Hindu traditions, for example, the statues that are placed, they have their clothes, and one needs to change the clothes of the statues, even pajamas or the seasons. I mean, there's a close relationship with the objects of the altar. In Buddhism, I haven't never seen this, but the point is that we create a close connection with our altar. Something I've seen, I find a little strange. I'm just going to say it, excuse me. Strange to put one's own picture on the altar. The altar is what represents our spiritual path, our object of faith, where we take refuge. If we want to put photos of our family, or even of ourselves, etc. But if we want to put these pictures so that we remember to dedicate to them, etc., then you can put them, but put them in separately somehow there, so that yes, they're there, and then you can remember to dedicate. For example, Lama Gachin, for example, on this altar, he had a place to the side where he put all the letters and the pictures and everything, where all the requests for blessings, and so he was actively dedicating and giving blessings to it. But the altar, remember, is what is sacred. And for the offerings, you can do it in different ways. In the minimum, you can light an incense, the Tibetan incense, and I don't mean to make advertising for Tibetan incense, but the incense, the incenses that are made in our tradition, the ingredients have different. They're different functions. They have different formulas also. I mean, one of the functions is to have a pleasant smell, but it should also purify the air, purify the surroundings. So we purify with an incense. We're not purifying from bacteria, or, making it hygienically clean in this way, but we have a coarse, and a subtle environment. So the subtle environment is home to beings that don't have a coarse body. We call them spirits, but in Tibetan they have hundreds of different names. But these beings don't have a gross body, and they feed off of smells. So what happens is that depending on the type of smell, you're going to attract or push away a type of being. For example, the smell of alcohol and tobacco is going to attract beings who don't have a positive influence on us, it said. And that's also why it said that the use of tobacco and alcohol, I mean, in addition to what it does to your health, it actually, and drugs, it attracts a certain types of spirits that don't influence the person well. So when you have an addiction, so an addiction creates a weakness of the character of the person, and the more the person doesn't have the strength of choice, the more easily he's influenced. So if you have a kind of addiction related to smoking or alcohol or any kind of drug, generally speaking, those who have this kind of addiction, these people are more easily influenced by these spirits. So this is why we say, when one wants to follow a deeper path, the Dharma path of inner development, one should be free of negative influences, because our surroundings influence our thoughts and our choices, our being. So we should really try to avoid smoking and drinking and the use of drugs for our health, but also to not attract certain types of negative influences. This is something, not because I have something against those who do this, no, because there is this interdependence among things, and these beings nourish themselves on these types of smells. And so when we light an incense, the Tibetan incense are made of herbs, mostly herbs, and many are done following certain kind of recipes, for certain types of beings, of these beings. So when we light an incense, it's also to generate a positive influence and eliminate a certain negative influence. And so that's why it said it's purifying the environment. And so even when we, for example, when we light an incense, there's a list of ingredients, and for certain practices they shouldn't be used or are used because maybe. So, for example, there's a substance called, it's rarely used today because it's very expensive, and it's also because it's forbidden. It's forbidden. It's an animal substance. of animal origin. It's even in the West. It was also used to make perfume. It's called the musk. Musk is a kind of deer that lives in the mountains. Actually comes from the sperm of this animal, and to get it, the animal needs to be killed. But so it has a wonderful smell, actually. But actually, if the Nagas, for example, they don't like it at all. So if you're making offerings to the Nagas, it cannot contain any of this musk. So when you're making offerings of incense, you should be aware also of this, of these kinds of things. So you should look at the list of ingredients, and the list of ingredients and how it's prepared is really to support the spiritual practices. So, but I went a little bit into detail here. But when we talk about preparing the environment, it's important to know this. I mean, Lama Ganchen put so much attention. Rinpoche had at least 6 places, and still has 6 places in the house to light incense. So, and in the morning he would wake up and he would go around the house and he would light incense in all these different places. And also in the evening before going to sleep is something he always did. He gave. He said it was gave a lot of emphasis on the importance of offering incense, and he would say that you should have your own experience with this and how beneficial it is. So we can light an incense when we make offerings, or you can also offer light. You can put like a little electric light or a candle and water. These little bowls you can make. Traditionally speaking, you put 7 bowls of water, and these bowls could be made of anything. They could be glasses or small little bowls, and ideally, as you're not using these glasses, I mean, you should be using these offering bowls exclusively for the offerings. And traditionally, they have their own form, but you can use crystal glasses or metal or gold or silver. I mean, normally one offers the best of what they have. You should offer 7 of them. Ideally, one puts them out in the morning, and then at the end of the day, one takes down the offerings. When you start from left to right, and then you take them down from right to left. One important aspect is that when you lay out the cups, you don't put the cups up that are empty, but you should add a little bit of water to each one as you position them. And as you position them, you should do it with care so that they're in line and with the same distance between each one. They say the distance should be like a grain of rice between each one of the between each little cup, And as you put the water in, you can recite Om Ahum. This is a simple way. The water is a special substance because it's pure. Water represents life. It's precious, but at the same time, it's easy to obtain, so has a very high value, but we don't have a lot of attachment to it. So we offer something that has value, but we shouldn't offer something to which we have a lot of attachment. So it works very well. In the monastery of Sera, for example, in Tibet, there was a tradition of different practitioners. They would leave early in the morning before dawn. They would walk for about an hour, and they would go to get the water from a natural spring for a very pure water, and they would use that water for their offerings. And every day they'd go back to the spring. For most of us, it's just easier. We just open up the faucet. Maybe we should have a container, a pitcher that's dedicated exclusively for our offering water. There's 6 bowls because the first one is water for drinking. The second one represents water for washing feet. These are the order of offerings. Like this, it's like as they did in India. When an important guest arrived, when someone came and a guest would arrive, first they would give him water to drink, and then they would offer him water for the feet, argam, making the mudras, and then padyam, and then he would be given pushpe, flowers, and then after the flowers, jupe, the incense, and then aloke, light, and then gende would be perfume, and then niwide, food, and then shabda, music. So there's 7. The 8th would be music. So you can put like a bell or something. So you can put water. Then you can put flowers, and then you can actually put the incense, and then the light, and then again the water, and then food. You can do that traditionally. You do, or either you do all with water, or you do as the substance that they represent. So the first one is argam, is water to drink, and this is the mudra of water to drink, and then the second mudra for the padyam is the water for the feet, and then we have pushpe for the flowers, and then dupe is for the incense, as if we're adding incense to an incense holder, and then we have the aloke of light, and here the 2 thumbs represent the sun and the moon, and then we have the open palms of the perfume of gende, because we're rubbing perfume on the chest of our guest, and then niwide with the food, we're offering food, and then the shabda, where this is the offering of music. Like we have the instruments in our hand and we're touching for sound. So we can put a flower on the altar, and this helps us materialize our feelings, our connection with the sacred, with our path. And at the end of the day, we take away. We start from the right to left, and normally when we take them out, we empty the bowls, pouring towards ourself, symbolizing that we're receiving the offerings. That water is pure. If you that water should be emptied in the garden into a plant or something, or if you have to, so better outside in a pure place or in plants, but if you have to put it down the sink, then you should imagine that water is going to also bless all the beings that it's going to come into contact with, because water also is a conductor of energy. I mean, there's a reason why there is blessed water in many traditions. There are sacred waters in Christianity and Buddhism, or there's also the famous study done by the Japanese man who did this study on the water. So once we've used the water on the altar as an offering, it's blessed water. So you can use that water for your plants, for cooking, or you can even drink it, or if you do throw it away, imagine that it will benefit all the beings. Once we've finished our offerings, we go to the next step, which is the preparation of ourselves. We've prepared their space and the altar. Where we sit. Actually, the place where we sit it's what's important is that it's a sacred place, a place that we give value to, and that we're not going to use it for anything else that's not connected to the spiritual path. So if I sit on that cushion or on that piece of cloth only to meditate or to pray or to study the Dharma, but I'm not going to sit there for any other reason. When I'm there, I'm not going to answer the phone or chat. I'm not going to do anything that's not part of my spiritual practice. So it's a place of respect. It's important that when we sit there, right from the beginning, we have this intention that when I sit in that place, it's for my spiritual path. It's to reach enlightenment for the benefit of all beings. And when I sit there, it's with bodhicitta, it's with the intention of helping others. So of connecting that place with our motivation. This has adds great strength, has great power. So also where we sit, it's important to find a comfortable cushion. Your back should be straight. So your lap should be higher than your knees. If we have a fixed place where we meditate, then underneath our cushion we can put some kusha grass. It's a grass that's used in India to make brooms, but it cleans well. But it's also it's an herb that represents cleansing and purification. The Brahmas, this caste in India, when they came into contact with something impure, according to their vision, they would go sleep. They would sleep in a field of kusha grass. When Buddha went to meditate to reach enlightenment, he made a cushion made of kusha grass. So for us to put this under our cushion is not for a question of purity, but to remind us of the example of Buddha and to tell us that we will follow the same example as Buddha. So we put kusha grass, and then And then we can put also rampa, which is another kind of herb that represents um, long life and health. At the beginning of, at the entrance here of the Gompa, on that table, there's a little bit of kusha grass there. It's something that we can also make available. It's something from that you could bring it. We brought it here from Nepal, from India. You can find it in India and Nepal. So this is kusha grass, Lama showing. You can even put just a small piece like this, and you put that under your cushion. That's when we have a fixed place to meditate, where we do our practices. And that tells us that we're following. And you can also make a double vajra under your cushion, or the symbol of the swastika, which is a very antique symbol. I mean, Hitler used it for his own reasons, but it's not a Nazi symbol in its origin. It represents stability in Buddhism. I remember once I was in Naples, and I went. There was a courtyard with there was a mosaic, and in this place it was over this ancient site of thousands of years, and there was this mosaic with a big swastika. So it's been used even before Buddhism, but the Buddhism inherited it and used it first to symbolize stability. So it's so there's no connection whatsoever between Buddhism and Nazis. Also the Nazis used the Nazis used the swastika. It turned differently than the way the Buddhists used it. So anyway, the point is you can use the swastika symbol underneath your seat in a clockwise direction, or you can put a double dorje just to symbolize stability. This, of course, when we have a stable place to meditate. If every day we change our place of meditation, then we're not going to do that. So this is about preparing our place, preparing the place. This concludes the preparation of the place. And now we're going to prepare our body. To prepare our bodies, the first thing that we should do is to sit comfortably. But so now I need to also be comfortable myself, and since I drank too much tea this morning, I guess it's also important that when we go into our practice, if we do it after breakfast, I mean, it depends. It's not that, we need to make sure that our own biological necessities don't take away our our take away our concentration. So let's do a mantra together. It's an example of cause and effect. If you drink diuretic tea in the morning, it's going to have the result. So after having prepared the place, that we prepare ourselves, our body, and in preparing ourselves, in this part, it's divided into two parts. So first we prepare our body, and then the mind to do the practice. So we begin with the body, and then we start by preparing the mind, generating the mind. For the body, we do the 7 or 8 positions of Vajrayana. Traditionally, we say that there are 7, but in some cases they're called 8. Nam nam kichudun. Try to find the verse here that talks about it. No. 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 So in this book, it's the book, The Wholesome Questions and Noble-Minded Answers. It's a melody of noble-minded proposal by Panchen Panchen Lodsan Chökyi Gyatsen as an answer to the very wholesome questions expressed with an extraordinary attitude by Lama Tsongkhapa. Lama Tsongkhapa, at the end, towards the end of his life, he wrote a book questions done with a pure attitude, because at the time there were many debates, many different ideas, different various spiritual traditions, which is better, so I mean, this has always existed, and somehow we need to we need to avoid conflict among spiritual traditions, or feeling that one is better than the other, because in reality they're different approaches of the same. And so Lama Tsongkhapa, towards the end of his life, he wrote this text where he asked questions, and he said, I'm asking these questions, and if you can answer these questions, I prostrate to you, because no matter which tradition you're following, if you can answer these questions correctly, you are on the right path. But if you can't answer them, then it's better to go back to better study. You're not ready. And he was waiting for their to answer, but actually the only one to formally answer his question was Panchen Lodsan Chökyi Gyatsen, who is also the same author of the Guru Puja. So I had studied both of these texts, and when I studied them, I took Lama Tsongkhapa's questions, and then I added the answers of Panchen Lodsan Chökyi Gyatsen, and we had them translated them, and we put them together. So this is a very special text. And here he talks. The text is divided into 3 parts: view, conduct, and meditation. Regarding meditation, there are many questions that are very, very useful, and there's one that has a question about the posture, and I wanted to use this as a reference, but Lama doesn't have the Tibetan. So Lama Tsongkhapa asks, let me just look for it, he says. It's number 13, question 13. How should one keep the body postures and so forth during those sessions? Because before he asked, how many sessions should one do during the day? So this is in the context of someone who dedicates his life to meditation, who dedicates someone who dedicates his life full-time to meditation should do at least 4 sessions a day, within 12 hours. This is 12 hours of meditation. It's not the case of most of us. Most of us have neither the preparation nor the conditions to do so. But his question is, how should one keep the body postures and so forth during those sessions? And it says, cherish the possession of the 7 body postures for the achievement of a faultless concentration. So these are the 7 postures of Vairochana. Vairochana, one of the 5 Dhyana Buddhas, represents the aggregate of form in the pure state. He represents the pure body. So that's why the body is represented by Buddha Vairochana white at our crown. The 7 postures have been transmitted from generation to generation in Tibet. And one of the even great master Marpo Lotsawa, who was the master of Marpa Lotsawa said, who was the master of Marpa, said that his posture was superior to any um, any perfect meditation. I mean, it was a perfect meditation because it influences so greatly. Because over centuries, even before Buddha, the meditation posture was very, very important. I mean, it's a posture that has. So this posture has been used for just hundreds and hundreds of years, and I mean for centuries and centuries, even thousands of years, and has been so beneficial, and it works. So we shouldn't change it. We use it. It's very simple, actually. The first part of the posture has to do with the back. Our back needs to be straight. Let's imagine as if there were from our crown of our head, like imagine a string that is just pulling us up, not too much, but a little bit, and our back is straight but not tense. When our back is tense, our chest moves forward, but no, our back is relaxed. So this is the most important part of the meditation posture. We can also experiment. You can make an experiment for yourself. If you're sitting down at a certain point, you arch your back. Naturally, you can feel that your mind becomes a little bit more foggy. We lose clarity. Instead, if our back's straight, then the mind wakes up a little bit naturally. For example, maybe someone's a little sleepy, one that wakes up and it tries to stretch the body a little bit to wake up the mind. There are two aspects that we should avoid in meditation, which is mental agitation and also mental fogginess. Mental agitation is the mind that goes from one object to another, and mental fogginess is the lack of inner clarity towards the object of meditation, that can even in extreme cases bring to sleep. So if our back is too tight, tense, we have more mental agitation. If our back is not straight, it's curved, then we can have mental fogginess. To help us, it's important to have a cushion under, and to put the cushion under our seat, and to bring our back a little higher. For example, if you try to meditate on the couch, it's not going to work because one just kind of melts into the couch. And so one is constantly trying to keep the back straight. So the first one is keeping our back straight. They describe it as keeping the back like an arrow, as straight as an arrow, but not tense. The second part, the legs, the correct posture of the legs is called Dorje Kilt in Tibetan, in Sanskrit Vajrayana. The Vajrayana, those who do yoga maybe have seen it or do yoga. It's to sit with your legs crossed, and the complete posture is when we put both feet on top of the thighs. Even if I do it, you can't even see it, but it's what we consider the full lotus position. But remember that you should be seated in a comfortable position. So if you're not comfortable, if you're not used to sitting like that and it generates a great discomfort, it's better not to do that. But one reason for sitting like this is because when you put your feet on top of your thighs, naturally the back becomes straight. If you can sit in a full lotus position, you don't have to put effort into keeping your back straight. So or you can put you can put your you can put your you can sit in like a half vajra position where you can put the right leg on top of the left leg. One master, I saw an explanation where he says during meditation, like which leg should you put above, or which leg you should put above, whether it's the right resting on the left or vice versa. Um, he, he said that it can you can decide based on the mental defilement that you want to overcome. So if you mostly have desire, then you should put the right above the left. And in the meditation, also the right over the left. Instead, if you have mostly aversion, you should do the opposite. You should put the left on top of the right and put the left hand on the right. This is one indication that I've seen given written. Normally, it's more common to put the right on top of the left when you're not able to do the full lotus position, this full vajra position. So, or another possibility would be to sit in a chair. Depends on your physical constitution, and what's important is to keep your back straight. So 1 back, 2 legs, 3 hands, 3 shoulders. The shoulders should be they shouldn't be too hunched forward or tense backwards. Often when it seems like we have relaxed shoulders, but it's not true. Often we have this tendency to put tension into our shoulders, but it's really important that when we do the practice, that the body needs to be relaxed, but at the same time it shouldn't be it should be relaxed, but with a certain dignity, let's say. Not just like I'm slouched on the couch, not relaxed like that. No, I'm relaxed with some dignity. My shoulders they're not tense forward or pulled backwards. I'm just, when you sit down, it helps maybe just to relax, move a little bit your shoulders, stretch a little bit. So 1 back, 2 legs, 3 shoulders, 4 hands. The hands should be held. The position is that the right should be on top of the left with the thumbs that meet. And the thumbs should correspond to the height of your navel, and the hands should be about three fingers under the navel. So this is easy if we have if we're in the full lotus position, it's easier. But what you can do is take a pashmina, take some kind of cover or something that you put on your lap. You put that on your lap so that you can place your hands at the right height of your body. You shouldn't hold your arms up so that you can keep your hands at that level of your navel. In the Tibetan tradition, both thumbs meet. In Thailand, for example, the thumbs don't meet. My reasoning is that I think in Tibetan tradition, they say the thumbs meet because there's an energy flow. There's a meridian that flows, so it helps generate inner heat. And the inner heat has two functions. One to actually heat up, and in some special particular meditations like Tumo, they help to generate this heat. So, but in Thailand, in Thailand, better to stay cooler, and so you wouldn't keep your thumbs connected. If you look, in Thailand, for example, the hands are put very, very hot. Sorry, in Thailand, the hands are just placed one flat above the other. But this is my interpretation. When the thumbs meet, there's a triangle. And the triangle is the symbol of concentration. And then you see that there are also two triangles formed by the arms, because the arms shouldn't be against the body. We sit, our arms are a little bit forward and they form triangles to our sides. It's the posture that is like the most balanced and relaxed for the body. And from the time of Buddha, it's been used. It also helps like to give space and air, like to your body. So we have a triangle from our fingers. We have the triangles at the sides formed from our arms, and then we have the triangle of our full body. So there's already 4 triangles. If this is too tiresome at the beginning for us, it's okay to put your hands just resting on your knees. But traditionally, the position of Vajrayana has the hands like this, with the thumbs meeting. So 1 back, 2 legs, 3 shoulders, 4 hands, 5 head. The head should not be too forward or too far back. It should be relaxed and just slightly forward. If it's too far forward, it brings fogginess. If it's too far back, it brings mental agitation. 6, mouth. The mouth should be relaxed, kept relaxed. So the teeth should not touch, but the lips are closed, because if the teeth touch, that creates tension, and that tension of the teeth can go to your cervical spine, and then the tongue should touch the palate. Now, those are your teeth in the front. So if we follow our teeth with our tongue, there's a point where it's where the palate just goes back a little bit. That's where we should rest our tongue. So we rest our tongue on top of our palate. It has 2 functions. One is that the contact with the palate relaxes the body. Geshe Wanchuk, who was my teacher, also a teacher of Lama Ganshan, he explained that it said that it relaxes the body just the way like small children put their thumb in their mouth. So the tip of the tongue touches the palate on a practical level. If one sits down to meditate, even for amount of time, after a while, even just swallowing, it becomes quite disturbing. So if you put your tongue up if you rest the tip of your tongue at your palate, you don't need to swallow saliva anymore, because if someone is really in deep meditation, and they explained to me that if if someone is really in deep meditation and they don't, without having put the tip of the tongue on the palate, at a certain point, all the saliva is going to run out of the mouth. And Lama said, when he heard that explanation, he said, "Well, if I'm that concentrated, it's great. It's fine. If I wake up, if I come out of meditation all wet, it's fine." So 7 is the eyes. The eyes should not be too closed because that brings mental fogginess, and if they're too open, that brings agitation, mental agitation. So the eyes should be slightly open and slightly closed. The direction of our look should be down. So imagine, for example, that you're lying down on the floor. So we should be looking as if it would be where our feet would be. So we're looking down in downward direction. Some traditions have the eyes looking up, but our tradition says to look down. So if we close our eyes completely, it's easier at the beginning to concentrate and visualize at the beginning, but the visualization is not as stable. So it's said that it's more difficult to visualize with the eyes semi-closed, but it is said that the quality of the visualization will be better and the concentration will be better. So it might seem sometimes it's easier to keep the eyes closed, and then we can open them slightly. So here we have the 7 postures of Vajrayana, or 8. The 8th is always present, but sometimes it's counted and sometimes it's not counted, but it's always there. The 8th posture, or the 7 plus 1, is one's own breath. So the back straight, legs crossed, shoulders relaxed, the right hand over the left, with the thumbs touching, at the head a little slightly forward, the mouth relaxed, and the eyes slightly closed, looking downwards. The 8th posture is the awareness of our breath. We're going to generate an abdominal breathing. So we're going to breathe with our belly and not with our chest. It's said that small children, when they're little, they naturally have this abdominal breathing. But as we get older, we have this tendency to breathe more from our chest. But when we meditate, we should breathe more from our abdomen. I've seen exercise done also for children. We can do it for adults too. But you can lie down on the floor, and then you put the object on your belly, and you bring it up, you bring it down, you bring it up. With this abdominal breathing. When we sit down, it's not so important to take deep breaths, but it's important to be aware of our breath, our breathing. So at the beginning, we let our breath be as it is, and then little by little, gradually, we guide it to become more balanced and deeper, but it should be an abdominal breathing. So when we inhale, we imagine that the energy comes towards the lower to the lower parts of our body. Just like when we swallow, we bring towards our belly, and we also at the same time we bring energy from our legs up, and we concentrate our energy at fingers underneath our navel. This is the area we should be focusing on when we breathe. We use a nasal breathing. We don't breathe with our mouth. And so this is all about the meditation posture, and this has to do with the preparation of the body. An exercise that I've done, that I did for a long time, and I advise you to do it, is not, it's not meditation, but it is part of the preparation of the body for meditation. Because when we meditate, to meditate well, we need to cultivate xingchang, which is translated as flexibility of the body and of the mind. The flexibility of the body happens when the body does what we want it to do without effort, and the flexibility of the mind happens when it does what we tell it to do. Imagine an athlete. Imagine an athlete who does, like, for example, a high jump so many times, and then they repeated it so many times, and then it just becomes spontaneous and easy. This is like the flexibility of the mind. Same for the mind. So in meditation, the body needs to be still and the mind needs to be focused on an object of meditation. At the beginning, it's hard to keep our body still, and it's hard to keep our mind still. So the flexibility of the body and the mind is achieved when the body is still without an effort, and when the mind is still without effort. We obtain the flexibility of the body. And when this stillness of the body during meditation is not only spontaneous but pleasurable, then one has reached this flexibility of body. And same thing with the mind. When that concentration and focus on an object brings pleasure, that's when we've reached the flexibility of the mind. If when we sit down to meditate and it's tiresome and it hurts and it itches, and I sit down already with the fear of my knee hurting, then it's going to be really hard. So we need to train our body first to then train our mind. So let me explain to you what this exercise is, and then little by little you can try. So you sit down in the correct posture. You create the conditions, external. You sit down in the correct posture, and you give yourself the task of not moving. This is not meditating, because the mind can go where it wants, but this is like for the physical training. So my intention is to not move. So maybe I want to itch. I want to itch and I don't move. I want to move, but I don't. And when something starts to itch or hurt, I remind myself this sensation is impermanent and it's going to pass. And you don't move. At the beginning, it's very difficult, but after a while, you get to a threshold, and after that threshold, it's pleasurable to not move. And when we're able to do that, we have a positive memory of being in that position, and then we want to repeat that experience. And so sitting down is not scary. So, so, so take look at the time, sit down to do it, and see how long you can sit like that. 5 minutes, great. Next time you repeat it, how long are we able to stay? 10 minutes, great. And you'll see that little by little, one is able to sit longer and longer. And when you can stay without moving and not even swallowing saliva or moving your hands, when you can, so at the beginning you feel your body, you feel your hands on touching, etc. But at a certain point, you lose the attention of the various parts of your body, and the body just becomes like one thing until it becomes pleasurable. I think that when you can complete this phase of preparation of the body, when you can stay seated quietly and without great effort for 45 minutes. It's not that hard. You need to just to try. I'm, I'm. If you did this every day for a week, I think you'd get there. But to get to that flexibility, um, um, that flexibility of body and mind, it's going to take more time. But we sit down, but we allow ourselves to be there still. This is an important word that we use. I allow myself to not move. I allow myself to sit. Because we have this addiction to external stimuli, to form, to objects, we're addicted to sensory stimuli. But when we're there sitting and we are in parentheses doing nothing, but actually just being there still and allowing ourselves to be, just to be, it is doing so much. It's doing so much more than looking at social media. I mean, you know, you know, if sitting and watching, looking at Facebook seems like you're doing a lot, and sitting in meditation seems like you're doing nothing, it's absolutely the opposite. So I sit with the intention of not moving. Naturally, you'll feel this necessity to feel your breath, to bring your breath deeper, and this will help you keep your body still. Do this exercise for a week, 10 days. But for a longer time, when you have maybe more time, do it in the morning, and do it in the afternoon, do it in the evening, trying to create this familiarity. After having done this, there's this next part that has to do with the preparation of the mind. And in this preparation, what we need to do is to bring the mind to a state of balance, a state of neutrality, before generating a correct motivation. Because, let's see if I can find it here in the text of Lama Tsongkhapa. There's a question, it says, 15. So, question 15. What is the reason to consider this as the beginning of meditation? Like the Sanskrit at the beginning of any sutra translation. The question, in other words, is what is the beginning of a meditation that is like the first sentence of the first page of all translations of the sutras in Tibetan, which names the title in Sanskrit as it is called such and such, or the title of the sutra is such as and such, because the beginnings of all the sutras begins with this first word. So what's the question is what's the beginning of the meditation? The beginning of all meditation, which is like the Indian language in the beginning of all translations of sutra in Tibetan, is to check one's own mind well. So it's proposed by the Supreme Unmatchable Guru. The point here is that the beginning of the meditation is to observe one's own mind, to bring the mind to a state of neutrality. Because if I sit down to meditate, it's very important during the preparation that's going to come afterwards is to generate correct motivation and love and a mind of refuge and bodhicitta, but to be able to generate those virtuous states of mind. Then we can't generate a virtuous mind from a negative state. So if I sit down to meditate, but I'm taken by arrogance and attachment and jealousy and envy or any other conditioning, negative conditioning, I'm not going to be able to generate something positive on that negative basis. So first of all, we need to observe our own mind and bring our mind to a state of neutrality, and then we can generate direct our mind to something positive. So this is part of the fourth. So today, the meditation on breathing, is considered as meditation, but this is our preliminary practices. So we're sitting there, we're seated, and we start observing our own breath as a tool to bring the mind to a more balanced state, to a state of more awareness, of presence in the present moment. This would be the mindfulness practice. In Tibetan we have Drempa and Shershing. So it's a kind of mindful remembering, or this mindfulness. So we need to be. We're going to explain this a little bit better later. In the preparation of the mind, what we do is that we use our breath as a bridge to bring the mind to the present moment. Because if we watch our breath, if we see our breath, it has a very special characteristics. It's able to give the rhythm to the mind. So if one tries to breathe quickly and think slowly, like in a relaxed way, it's very difficult. And the opposite is true. So breathe very slowly and have very quick thoughts. It's difficult too. So imagine that our breath is like the master, the maestro, that gives the rhythm to our breath, the conductor to the breath. There are different types of meditation on the breath, and we're not going to get into details because now we're going to stop for lunch, and I don't want to open up a subject and leave it, at a third. So the meditation on our breath is very important because it gives us the possibility of beginning to meditate. It gives us the um, it's like we want to horseback ride, but first we need to sit correctly on the saddle, and then we need to hold the reins well. At that point, then we can take the horse in the direction that we want. This is a good example because as a child, up until 12 years old, I used to horseback ride a lot. I was 3.5 when I started riding. I created a nice relationship with horses. I remember one of the last time I went horseback riding, maybe over 20 years ago, I was on my sister's horse. She had a horse. It was a beautiful horse, but had a very strong character. Just a strong character, let's say. And so I was on this horse, and I had to take the reins and show that I was the one in charge. And it's very interesting because it's almost like a dialogue that is created. That a dialogue that creates harmony. At first, you have to be, at first you have to pull the reins very tightly because the horse doesn't want to do what you want to do, but you need to show that you are the one in charge. And then at a certain point, once you're able to be in control, then you loosen the reins, but you're still in control. Our body and mind, follow the same metaphor here. We need to take the reins into our hands, and at first we need to be rigid, be strong, show that we're in charge, and the breath helps us do that. Once we're able to maintain the breath where we want, then we can release a little bit. When you go horseback riding, it's really nice because you can loosen the reins so much that it's just only once in a while that it's like the reins are almost not necessary, but then every once in a while you just very lightly give a direction here or there. And I remember as a child I had this very special relationship with horses, but in this case I had this, instead, when we have a very uncontrollable, furious horse, we need to keep the reins very short, because otherwise we're just gonna, and what we do at the beginning to help us keep that control and those reins short is our posture and our breath. Once we're able to bring once we're able to bring our breath, to bring ourselves into the present moment, then we can relax the reins a little bit. So meditation on our breath brings us to the stability. So to generate the stability of our mind, we can use the meditation on the breath. I say that we can stop for lunch, and then after lunch we can look at these meditation techniques on our breath, and they can be done one after the other, just observing our breath. Sorry. So there's the technique of counting breaths. There's a technique of breathing in breathing in light and expelling the smoke, and then there's also the technique of 9-cycle breathing meditation. But let's remember that the preliminary practices should be done with attention. They shouldn't be, it's just that they're just part of the preliminaries. I want to go on to more important things. No, don't don't be in a hurry to cook. Make sure that you get the right. Make sure that you clean your kitchen and have the right tools, and then get the ingredients that you need so that you'll be able to cook well. So for this reason, we need to without hurry. Create the best conditions for our meditation, for our practice. I think it's clear enough. It's important that everything we've seen up till now, we're all able to do this. We can create this. We can make time. We can create the space. We can sit down in this posture. But the practice starts from where we are, so we shouldn't expect to start the practice at a level that where we're not. We need to start where we are. So let's do our dedications.
Lame kutse rapten chi namkar chinle chokchur gepadang losan tempe drume sasum ki drove munsel takto negyor chi kewa kunto yanda lamadang dralme cheki pela longche ching Sadan lamge yunte rabzone dorje change kopang nyurtobe sho nimo dele tsendele nime kuyan delekshin ninsen takto delekpe kuncho sumke jingilo kuncho sumke ngodrubot sol Concio sumche trasciscio. All'alba o al tramonto, di notte o durante il giorno, possano i tre gioielli concederci le loro benedizioni, possano aiutarci ad ottenere tutte le realizzazioni e cospargere il sentiero della nostra vita con molti segni di buon auspicio. Om ahun tembala me sangye rinpoche kyobala me tamcho rinpoche drembala me gendu rinpoche kyamne kuncho sumla chopa bu locho sambo pagyo trashi pa tuche tembe trinle yarngo pegye drolo zambe zebra che panden lame shela chopa bu kanshi dremba tsamge chinange parche kunsele shi trinle nam Tsotse gyache shungden ringa tse tensung kordan chela chepa kenam chochin sowa tabe tu daso kanto nebe sachu ter nedan ulpon tapso shivadan chedan trashi peor zedu son. Buon appetito e poi ritorniamo alle 3:30 anche perché siamo in tanti e con tutti i vari protocolli di sicurezza eccetera diventa un po' più lungo Ok, quindi ritorniamo alle 3:30. Grazie a tutti.